The air inside Linlithgow Palace is heavy with the scent of damp stone and dying embers. Shadows flicker across ancient walls as torches sputter in their brackets. Footsteps echo down the narrow corridor, rapid, panicked, relentless. A man in royal livery, breath ragged, pushes forward. His boots strike the cold flagstones like a war drum. Something has ended. Something must begin. He stops outside a door carved with the royal crest. Behind it, silence reigns, broken only by the gentle stirrings of a mother and her newborn child. He composes himself, just barely. Then, with trembling hands, he pushes the door open. Marie de Guise turns from the cradle, her eyes hollow with exhaustion. The infant stirs in soft blankets, unaware of the world now resting on her tiny shoulders. "My lady," the man begins, bowing low. "The king is dead." The words fall like a sword. Marie clutches the edge of the crib. "Your daughter is now Queen of Scotland." Outside, the bells of the chapel begin to toll, one after another, a mournful rhythm to usher in an uncertain age. It is December 1542. Scotland has no king. It has a queen who cannot yet hold her head up. She has inherited a fractured realm, surrounded by enemies and uneasy allies. At the center of it all, an infant's cry echoes through the stone halls, rising above the sound of tolling bells. A new reign has begun, shrouded in death, prophecy, and danger. And so begins the life of Mary Queen of Scots, whose story will weave through empires, betrayals, forbidden love, and fatal ambition, until it ends in silence, under the cold gaze of another queen's justice. The cradle rocks gently. History shifts. The queen has been born. Sunlight pours through stained glass, casting crimson and gold across the stone floor of the council chamber. Marie de Guise stands at the head of the table, the weight of the crown not on her brow, but in her blood. Around her sit Scotland's Catholic lords, noblemen sworn to protect the infant queen, yet restless with fear and ambition. "My lady," one speaks, voice low and urgent. "Henry VIII has heard of the king's death. He will act quickly. He wants your daughter in English hands." Marie's eyes narrow. Across the chamber, a herald lays a letter on the table. Its seal bears the unmistakable symbol of the Tudor rose. "He proposes a union," another regent says bitterly. "His son Edward, to our queen. A betrothal in name, a conquest in truth." Murmurs ripple through the council like wind through dry grass. The English king is no ordinary threat. A Protestant monarch with fire in his eyes and blood on his hands, Henry sees Scotland as vulnerable prey. Marie glances down at the sleeping child in her arms. Her daughter, her legacy, her crown. "She will not marry Edward," Marie says firmly. "Not while I draw breath." One lord leans forward. "Then we must seek aid. France, the Pope, anyone who will keep England at bay." Marie nods slowly. "The child is queen, but I am her mother. I will guide her until she can defend her own throne. If Henry means to challenge us, we must find allies who will die before letting him win." Outside, a raven takes flight from the palace walls, a dark silhouette against a cold northern sky. Inside, the queen stirs in her cradle. Already the battles for her crown have begun. The wind howls across the Scottish coast, carrying with it the salt of the sea and the scent of coming change. At the docks, a crowd gathers, cloaked nobles, weeping maids, stern soldiers. All eyes are on the ship that waits in the harbor, sails snapping like banners of fate. Marie de Guise holds her daughter close, her arms wrapped tightly around the bundled infant queen. Mary is just 5 years old, her cheeks rosy, her wide eyes filled with confusion. She doesn't understand yet what it means to leave her homeland, her mother, her people. "My darling," Marie whispers, brushing a curl from Mary's face. "You must be brave. You are going to France, not just to be safe, but to become strong." Around them, the advisors murmur, watching the moment unfold like a scene from a tragedy. They all know the truth. This is no simple visit. It is a calculated move. One final hope to shield Mary from England's grasp. The French court has agreed. Mary will be raised among them, groomed to marry the Dauphin, Francis, a queen for their prince, a daughter for their nation. Marie steps back as the wind tugs at her cloak. Mary is lifted onto the ship by gentle hands. She doesn't cry, yet. She only turns, looking back until her mother is a silhouette against the gray sky. Marie stands motionless as the ship pulls away, her heart fracturing in silence. Behind her, the nobles whisper of duty and strategy, but Marie feels only the raw pain of separation. She has sent her daughter across the sea, into the arms of foreign kings, to protect a throne draped in shadow. For the queen to survive, she must first learn to reign in exile. The waves rise and Scotland fades. The morning mist clings to the shoreline like a veil of sorrow. The ship creaks softly as it bobs in the tide, ropes groaning against the pull of the sea. From the hills above, Linlithgow Palace stands distant, its towers blurred by the fog. Scotland watches silently as one of its own prepares to leave. Mary stands on the deck, her small hand wrapped tightly around her mother's fingers. Marie de Guise's jaw is set, but her eyes are wet. Around them, attendants and courtiers bustle with trunks and farewells. Yet time seems frozen for the mother and child, two figures suspended between past and future. The wind catches Mary's red cloak, snapping it behind her like a royal banner. She looks out over the waves, unaware of the history she carries. She is just a girl, and yet, in her tiny frame, two kingdoms hold their breath. "My sweet girl," Marie says, kneeling beside her, "this journey will take us far, but your spirit must remain strong. France is not home, but it is our hope." The gangplank is drawn. The ship groans, sails unfurling like wings. As it begins to drift from the dock, the nobles on the shore raise gloved hands in solemn farewell. Some bow, others wipe their eyes. Mary turns to wave, her small face pale against the gray horizon. Marie wraps her arms around her daughter and holds her close, knowing this moment may never come again. The sea stretches endlessly ahead, an uncertain road to an uncertain future. By nightfall, Scotland is gone, and though mother and daughter share this voyage, only one will return. For in France, destiny waits with open arms. A crown, a marriage, a war yet to come. The ship sails on, leaving behind tears and the cradle of a kingdom. The Château de Saint-Germain-en-Laye rises like a dream from the French countryside, its grand halls filled with music, laughter, and the scent of fresh blossoms. Here, far from the chill of Scottish winds, Mary begins a new life, one wrapped in silk, Latin verse, and courtly etiquette. Tutors line the marble corridors, each more gifted than the last. Mary learns languages like songs, French, Latin, Italian, Spanish. Her mind absorbs everything: poetry, politics, dance, diplomacy. She rides horses with poise, debates philosophers with fire. The girl who once slept under tartan now walks beside dukes and cardinals. But amid the lessons and rituals, there is one constant: Francis. Delicate and soft-spoken, the young Dauphin is unlike his father, the stern King Henri II. Francis prefers books to battles, music to marches. And in Mary he finds not only a companion, but an equal. They wander the palace gardens together, play chess by candlelight, and trade whispered dreams of what ruling might one day be. "Do you ever miss Scotland?" Francis asks one evening. Mary smiles, eyes fixed on the twilight sky. "Only when I dream, but I believe I was always meant to be here." The French court embraces her as one of their own. Her beauty becomes legend, tall, graceful, with auburn hair and a voice that charms even the coldest noble. But it is her mind, her wit, her presence that captivate most. She is no longer just the child queen of a troubled land. She is a future queen consort of France, the jewel of two kingdoms, raised in the elegance of Versailles, but tempered by Scottish iron. As the years pass, Mary blossoms, not just into a woman, but into a force of destiny. In France, the girl becomes a monarch, and soon a bride. The bells of Notre Dame toll across Paris, their thunderous song echoing through cobbled streets and golden rooftops. The city is alive with celebration. Crowds press into every corner, shouting blessings, tossing petals, and raising goblets in tribute. Today, two thrones are joined beneath heaven's gaze. Inside the cathedral, the air is heavy with incense and expectation. Sunlight pours through stained glass windows, casting jewels of light upon the assembled nobility. Robes shimmer, jewels sparkle, and eyes turn to the grand aisle. Mary enters, radiant in white and gold, her auburn hair adorned with pearls and lace. She moves with quiet confidence, her steps echoing on the ancient stones. At the altar stands Francis, nervous, slight, but deeply devoted. His eyes never leave hers. As the priest begins, Latin chants swirl around them, sacred and somber. This is more than a wedding. It is a declaration of power. Scotland and France, united by faith, bonded by blood. Together, they will stand against the tide of Protestant reform sweeping through Europe. Vows are spoken, rings exchanged, a kiss seals the union. The cathedral erupts in applause. Outside, fireworks explode above the Seine. Courtiers dance in candlelit halls. Mary and Francis, hand in hand, retreat to a private chamber where titles fall away, and only two young hearts remain. But in the shadows of celebration, whispers stir. England watches with unease. The union strengthens Catholic power, and with Mary's claim to the English crown, the alliance sends tremors through Queen Elizabeth's court. Yet for now, none of that matters. Tonight, Mary is not just a Queen of Scots, she is Queen of France. And in the arms of Francis, beneath the velvet canopy of royal promise, she feels, for a fleeting moment, safe, loved, and unbreakable. History, however, has other plans. The skies over Paris are gray, heavy with mourning. The bells that once rang in celebration now toll in sorrow. Inside the palace, the halls are hushed. Tapestries are drawn, servants whisper, and the scent of roses, once fresh, now hangs like a ghost in the air. Mary kneels beside the bed of Francis. His face, pale and still, is barely recognizable from the boy she once knew. The infection came swiftly, an ache in his ear that grew into fever, delirium, silence. Not even the finest physicians of France could save the young king. She clutches his hand, but it is cold. Her husband, her friend, her crown, gone. Francis is just 16. Mary, only 18, stands cloaked in widow's black before a world that once adored her. Now she is a queen without a country. The French court, once warm and welcoming, has grown cold. Power shifts swiftly here. Catherine de' Medici, Francis's mother, moves quickly to secure her remaining son, Charles IX, on the throne. There is no place left for Mary. A quiet decision is made. She will return to Scotland. She boards the ship in silence, the same sea now dark and brooding. France fades behind her like a dream turned nightmare. Ahead lies the land of her birth, a place she barely remembers. A kingdom changed, a people divided. Scotland is no longer the Catholic stronghold she left. Protestantism now dominates, and her French upbringing is a source of suspicion. Yet she carries herself like a queen, veiled in sorrow, but not defeat. As the Scottish coast emerges from the mist, Mary steels herself. She returns not as a child, nor a bride, but a widow with fire in her heart. She has buried a king. Now, she must learn to rule alone. Scotland greets its queen not with fanfare, but with suspicion. As Mary steps ashore in Leith, the salt wind tangling her veil, the people gather to see the woman raised in French silk now standing on their rugged soil. Her beauty is undeniable, her poise regal. But beneath every bowed head is a question. Whose queen is she truly? The Scotland Mary left behind is gone. In her absence, the Reformation has swept through the land like wildfire. Churches stripped bare, priests driven into exile. The sermons now speak John Knox's name louder than Christ's, and Knox himself sharp-eyed and unrelenting, watches Mary's return like a hawk circling above. She wears the face of a queen, he whispers to his followers, but her soul carries Rome. Still, the nobles ride to greet her, some out of loyalty, others out of ambition. They smile, swear allegiance, and wait for her to falter. The royal court she re-establishes in Edinburgh is elegant but cautious. Mary brings musicians, scholars, and advisors from France, creatures of a world her people no longer trust. Even her own council is fractured. Catholic allies press for old ways. Protestant lords speak of moderation, but sharpen their knives behind closed doors. Mary listens, nods, smiles. But each decision she makes feels like a wager, on peace, on power, on survival. One evening, Mary stands at her window overlooking the city. Torches flicker below. Somewhere, church bells ring. Somewhere, Knox is preaching her downfall. "I am their queen," she murmurs. "But am I one of them?" In a land carved by belief and blood, Mary must now walk a razor's edge. One step wrong, and she could fall, not just from grace, but from history. The throne is hers, but the country may never be. The wedding bells ring out across Edinburgh, but there is little joy beneath their chime. Mary, Queen of Scots, takes Henry Stuart, Lord Darnley, as her husband. The match seems perfect on paper. He is tall, handsome, of noble blood, and like Mary, a Catholic with a claim to the English throne. Their union should unite factions, solidify the Stuart line, and bring peace. But appearances are deceiving. From the beginning, Darnley's charm rots into arrogance. He demands the crown matrimonial, equal rule beside Mary, and bristles at being excluded from matters of state. "I am a king," he says, pounding his fist on the council table. But Mary meets him with cold fire in her eyes. "You are nothing without me," she replies. "Never forget that." Whispers swirl through the court. Darnley drinks too much, fights with nobles, and humiliates his wife in public. He suspects every man near her, especially her Italian secretary, David Rizzio. His jealousy festers, dark and dangerous. Mary tries to hold her court together, tries to smile through the cracks in her marriage, but the tension is undeniable. The nobles begin to circle, sensing weakness. Darnley, meanwhile, retreats into sulking and scheming. In private, their arguments grow vicious. "You shame me in front of my people," Mary snaps. "I see the way you look at Rizzio," Darnley growls. "Do you think I don't know?" The queen walks away, her stomach heavy with child, her mind racing with dread. What began as a political alliance has unraveled into a personal war, and Mary, once hopeful, once radiant, now finds herself trapped beside a man she cannot trust. The crown may sit on her head, but the dagger is at her back, and it has her husband's fingerprints on the hilt. The gallery is filled with soft light and quiet conversation. Mary sits with David Rizzio, her trusted secretary, discussing matters of court beneath stained glass windows that paint the room in color. She is heavily pregnant, her hand resting on her swelling belly, the future King of Scotland stirring within. The peace shatters in an instant. The doors crash open. Darnley enters, his eyes wild, his jaw clenched, followed by armed men with drawn blades. "This ends now," he hisses. Mary rises in alarm, backing away. The soldier sees Rizzio. He clings to Mary, begging for her protection, his fingers tangled in the folds of her gown. "Do not do this," Mary cries, her voice cracking. "He is no threat. This is madness." But no one listens. Knives flash, blades plunge. Over 50 wounds are carved into Rizzio's body as he screams, then chokes, then falls silent. Blood sprays across the stone floor, staining Mary's shoes, her skirts, her soul. She stands frozen, her face pale, her breath shallow. The child inside her kicks violently. "God help us," she whispers. Darnley says nothing. He watches the murder with a twisted satisfaction, then turns and walks away. That night, the queen locks herself in her chamber. Outside, nobles whisper of treason and madness. Inside, Mary cradles her belly, feeling the life within her fight to survive the trauma. On June 19, 1566, the halls of Edinburgh Castle echo with screams, not of war, but of birth. Mary delivers a son, James, into a world already steeped in betrayal. He is her light in the darkness, but even he cannot undo the horror of what she has endured. The blood on the floor has not yet dried, and Mary knows the worst is yet to come. The air over Edinburgh is thick with frost as Henry Stuart, Lord Darnley, lies in convalescence at Kirklefield. The house is quiet, his attendants discreet, his wife absent. Mary has not visited often. Their marriage, once a political triumph, now lies in ruins, poisoned by distrust, humiliation, and blood. Still, Darnley tries to recover. He takes short walks, reads letters, gazes out at the winter sky. But whispers drift through the streets, of enemies, of revenge, of something coming. Beneath the house, barrels of gunpowder sit hidden, the fuse laid with purpose. At midnight, a flash rips through the night. The earth trembles. The house erupts into a column of flame and stone, the explosion shattering windows across the city. Smoke chokes the sky. Rubble rains down. The house at Kirklefield is gone, leveled. But Darnley's body is not found in the ruins. A search of the grounds reveals a grim discovery. In a nearby orchard, his lifeless form lies beside his servant. No burns, no wounds, both strangled. The Queen receives the news in stony silence. She does not cry. She does not protest. The court erupts with speculation. Was it Mary? Was it the Earl of Bothwell? Was it revenge for Rizzio, for betrayal, for ambition? Mary says nothing, but silence becomes guilt in the minds of her enemies. A king has died not by illness, not by war, but by cold design. And whether Mary ordered it or merely allowed it, Scotland will never look at her the same. The flames of Kirklefield may have consumed a house, but the explosion shatters more than stone. It marks the beginning of her undoing. A queen's power has never been more dangerous, and never more fragile. The smoke from Darnley's death had barely cleared when another storm gathered. Just 3 months after the explosion at Kirklefield, Mary Queen of Scots weds James Hepburn, the Earl of Bothwell. The announcement sends shockwaves through the realm. The people whisper, the nobles rage. Even her closest allies stare in disbelief. Bothwell, brash, cunning, and rumored to have orchestrated Darnley's murder, had been her protector, her confidant. Now, he is her husband. Some say he abducted her, forced her hand. Others claim Mary went willingly, that she loved him, that she saw in him a partner strong enough to hold the crumbling throne beside her. But perception matters more than truth. To the public, it is a betrayal. To the Protestant lords, it is a provocation. To her enemies, it is the final proof that Mary was complicit in her second husband's death. Churches denounce her. Nobles begin to plot. Former supporters turn their backs. Even Catholics grow uneasy. Mary tries to maintain control, presenting her new husband as a stabilizing force. But Bothwell is no diplomat. He is reckless, feared, and increasingly despised. His swagger only deepens the divide. His presence beside the Queen poisons every room he enters. "What have you done?" one advisor whispers. "You've married ruin." Mary says nothing, but in private she weeps. This is not the future she imagined, not the crown she dreamed of. What began as a love of power is now just the fear of loss. The marriage is meant to save her. Instead, it becomes the final nail in her reputation. The Queen who once held 2 kingdoms in her hands now finds herself surrounded by enemies, by doubt, and by a husband who may bring her to ruin faster than any assassin ever could. The midsummer sun hangs low over Carberry Hill as 2 armies face each other in tense silence. On one side, Mary Queen of Scots and James Hepburn, Earl of Bothwell, defiant, proud, outnumbered. On the other, a coalition of nobles, Catholic and Protestant alike, united by one goal, to remove the Queen. The hill is quiet. save for the occasional clink of armor and the distant cry of birds. Mary stands tall in her saddle, dressed in black and crimson. Her eyes sweep the field, searching for a way out. But there is none. "They've turned against me," she murmurs. Bothwell draws his sword. "We can still fight." Mary shakes her head. "Not today. Not against our own countrymen." The nobles send envoys, offering terms. "Come with us peacefully," they say, "and we will spare Bothwell." Mary glances at her husband, her jaw clenched. She knows it's a lie, but she also knows they cannot win. "I will go," she says, raising her voice. "Spare him." Bothwell grips her hand for one last moment, then rides off into exile, vanishing into the haze of history. Mary dismounts and walks forward alone. The nobles part like a tide. Some bow, most do not. "You will be taken to Loch Leven Castle," one says coldly. "There you will remain until Scotland no longer suffers your rule." Loch Leven rises from the mist like a prison built from stone and sorrow. Within its cold walls, Mary is stripped of her titles, her freedom, her child. She stares from her chamber window, eyes fixed on the distant hills, her hands resting on her stomach. Twins, now lost to grief. Carberry Hill was not a battle, it was a reckoning. And the Queen, for all her titles, is now a prisoner of her own people. The night is silent at Loch Leven Castle, save for the soft splash of water and the rustle of linen. A laundress pushes a cart of soiled clothes through the corridor. Beside her walks a woman cloaked in shadows, her face hidden, arms piled with laundry. It is Mary. After nearly a year of captivity, a daring escape is in motion, masterminded by Willie Douglas and aided by loyal hearts willing to risk everything. Disguised as a servant, the former queen slips past drowsy guards and into the waiting boat. They row across the dark waters of Loch Leven, every creak of the oars like a gunshot in the stillness. On the shore, hundreds of supporters await, their torches lighting the night like stars fallen to earth. Mary is free. By morning, her standard is raised again. Nobles gather, soldiers rally. The queen rides at the head of her army, determined to reclaim her throne. They march toward Edinburgh with hope burning in their chests. But at Langside, that hope is shattered. On May 13, 1568, Mary's forces clash with those of James Stuart, Earl of Moray, her half-brother and regent to her son. The hills run red with blood. Swords ring, arrows fly, and shouts of war turn to cries of defeat. Mary watches from a ridge as her army crumbles. What began as a triumph becomes a massacre. She flees the battlefield, heart pounding, her cloak soaked in rain and fear. Her loyal few ride with her, faces grim. There is no way back to the throne now. Scotland is lost. With no allies left, Mary makes one final, desperate decision. She will cross into England, into the hands of her cousin, Queen Elizabeth. But she is not seeking refuge. She is walking into history's trap. Rain lashes the borderlands as Mary crosses into England, her cloak heavy with water, her crown left behind in the mud of Langside. Exhausted, disheveled, and betrayed, she rides not as a queen, but as a fugitive. Each hoofbeat brings her closer to her last hope, her cousin, Elizabeth I. For years, their letters had been cordial, even affectionate. Two queens bound by blood, divided by faith. Now, Mary throws herself at Elizabeth's mercy, hoping sisterhood will outweigh politics. "I seek shelter," she writes, "not a throne, only safety." But the English court sees something else. A Catholic queen with a stronger claim to the English crown than Elizabeth herself. Whispers rise like smoke, of plots, papal blessings, and foreign armies. Elizabeth does not meet Mary in person. Instead, she sends guards. When Mary steps into Carlisle Castle, she expects protection. She finds a cell. At first, they call it protective custody, a precaution. But the locks click shut. The guards never leave. Days stretch into weeks. Letters go unanswered. Her freedom, once a promise, becomes a distant memory. From the narrow window, Mary watches the English rain fall over foreign fields. She thinks of Scotland, of France, of the crown that slipped so easily from her fingers. She was meant to be a queen of two nations, yet now she is a prisoner in both. "I am not your enemy," she writes again. "I am your kin." But Elizabeth is silent. She weighs risks. She counts threats. And above all, she watches. Mary may be in chains, but her name still stirs Catholic hearts across Europe. And for Elizabeth, that is more dangerous than any army. The sanctuary Mary sought has become her second cage, and the walls are far higher this time. The years pass in uneasy silence. Mary remains locked away, her world reduced to stone walls and watchful eyes. But beyond her prison, whispers grow louder. Across Europe, Catholic monarchs plot, bishops conspire, and underground networks pulse with a single, dangerous dream: to see Mary crowned Queen of England. Letters cross borders under false names. Secret messengers vanish into alleyways. Hidden within ordinary correspondence are coded messages, ink that vanishes, numbers that whisper death. Every failed plot is met with brutal reprisal. Every name revealed becomes a death sentence. In 1571, the Ridolfi plot is uncovered. A Florentine banker, trusted by nobles, conspires to kill Elizabeth and place Mary on the throne. Spanish forces stand ready to invade. The Pope gives his blessing. When the plot unravels, heads roll. Yet Mary is untouched. No proof ties her directly. Elizabeth fumes, but cannot move against her cousin. Not yet. Still, the noose tightens. Elizabeth's court passes laws to prevent Mary from ever claiming the throne, even if Elizabeth dies. The bond of association, they call it. A legal trap designed to ensure Mary's downfall if even a hint of rebellion touches her name. Mary writes letters in careful script, denying involvement, pleading innocence, but the ink stains her hands as surely as if it were blood. "I am no traitor," she says. "Only a queen denied her throne." But England doesn't forget, and neither does Elizabeth. Every message Mary sends, every visitor she greets is watched. She is a symbol, a threat, a rallying cry for the discontent. Though the sword does not yet fall, the shadow of it grows longer each day. And in the eyes of her captors, she is guilty, not by action, but by existence. The queen in chains still wears her crown in their nightmares. The summer of 1586 is heavy with heat and secrets. Deep within the estate where Mary is held, a servant slips into her chamber. He bows low, but his eyes flick with urgency. "My lady," he whispers, "I bear a letter from Anthony Babington." Mary's heart skips. She has heard the name, young, noble, Catholic, loyal to her cause. His words, encrypted and urgent, speak of rebellion. "We have 6 men ready," he writes, "to strike down Queen Elizabeth and restore you to your throne." Mary reads in silence. Her candle flickers. Outside, the cicadas drone like distant drums. She hesitates. Then she picks up her quill. Her reply is cautious, measured, but damning. "Let me see these men," she writes, "and decide if the deed can be done." The letter leaves her hand. She does not know it has already passed through others, men loyal not to her, but to Elizabeth. Walsingham, the Queen's spymaster, has built a web so fine it catches shadows. The trap is sprung. When the coded messages are broken and presented to Elizabeth, she holds the page with trembling hands. At last, the justification she has waited for. Mary's own handwriting, acknowledging a plot to assassinate the Queen. Elizabeth stares out her window, torn between fear and duty. "She must be tried," she says. "Let the world see her crime." Mary denies it. She claims entrapment, manipulation. But the ink does not lie. In a world ruled by suspicion, Mary has crossed the line from symbol to threat. No longer just a queen in exile, she is now an enemy of the state. The verdict is inevitable. The death warrant waits for one more signature, and this time there will be no escape, No rescue, no letters left to send. On February 8th, 1587, Mary Queen of Scots walks to the scaffold in a gown of black, her veil thin as shadow. She stands tall, unbroken. "I die a true Catholic," she declares, laying her head on the block. The first blow misses, the second nearly severs, the third ends it. The executioner lifts her head and shouts, but silence clings to the room like smoke. Mary's death is not the end. It is legend. Her blood stains stone, but her story carves itself into history. Queen, prisoner, martyr, a crown lost, a legacy immortal.